A spoiled, entitled teenager on a school trip mocks and disrupts the tomb of the unknown soldier, not realizing the gravity of the sacred site. A single dad veteran, now working as a tomb guard, witnesses the disrespect and steps in to protect the honor of the fallen. The veteran confronts the teen, who responds with arrogance and entitlement. Their conflict draws attention from other visitors, teachers, and guards. The tension rises as the veteran's calm authority clashes with the teen's ego. Through stories of sacrifice and the unbreakable discipline of tomb guards, the veteran slowly opens the teen's eyes to what respect, honor, and sacrifice truly mean. The teen begins to feel shame for his words and actions. The day was bright and clear, the sky stretching endlessly blue above the solemn grounds of Arlington National Cemetery, where silence was not simply expected but demanded and respected by all who walked its paths. And at the heart of that sacred place stood the tomb of the unknown soldier, guarded day and night with an unshakable discipline that few in the world could understand unless they had stood in the shoes of those who bore the burden of protecting its dignity. And on this particular morning, crowds of visitors gathered quietly, their voices hushed to whispers, their footsteps softened on the stone, because they knew that what they were about to witness was not a performance but a living reminder of sacrifice, of service, of lives given so that others could live in freedom. Yet within that respectful silence there was one voice that soon shattered everything. Among the gathered crowd was a group of high school students on a field trip, their teachers whispering reminders to stay quiet, to show respect, to understand the seriousness of the ceremony. But as with many groups of teenagers, there was always one who felt rules did not apply to him, one who sought attention, one who found enjoyment in mocking what others revered. And his name was Tyler, a 15-year-old boy from a wealthy family who had grown up with the belief that the world revolved around him, that his father's money could smooth over any trouble, and that consequences were something meant for others but never himself. As the guard paced back and forth in perfect, measured steps, rifle at his side, eyes fixed forward, Tyler smirked and nudged his friend, whispering far louder than the respectful hush allowed, "Dude, look at this guy. He looks like a robot. Bet if I yell something he'll glitch like a video game character." His friend chuckled nervously, knowing it was wrong but unwilling to risk Tyler's scorn by telling him to stop, and so the laughter escaped, piercing the solemn quiet, drawing annoyed glances from nearby visitors. But Tyler, emboldened by the attention, only raised his voice, cupping his hands to call out, "Hey soldier boy, lighten up. Bet you've been practicing that walk since kindergarten." A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd, the kind of collective shock that comes when someone has crossed an invisible but deeply understood line. And while the guard did not flinch, did not break formation, did not acknowledge the insult, there was another man in the crowd who could not and would not let the disrespect slide. His name was Daniel Brooks, a 42-year-old veteran who had served his country with honor and who now, after years of deployments and sacrifice, worked as both a mentor to younger soldiers and as a tomb guard to continue paying tribute to those who had given all. And beside him stood his 13-year-old daughter Emma, her small hand clasped in his, her wide eyes watching with deep admiration the silent march of the guard, because she had grown up understanding at least a piece of what service meant, of what her father and so many others had endured, and she cherished the dignity of the moment. When Tyler's mocking voice rang out again, louder, sharper, trying to draw laughter from his peers, Emma flinched and looked up at her father, her voice soft and confused as she asked, "Daddy, why would he say that? Doesn't he know this place is special?" And Daniel's jaw tightened, his heart heavy but his resolve strong as he answered quietly, "He doesn't know yet, sweetheart, but maybe he can learn." With that, Daniel stepped forward, his posture commanding but his voice even, steady, calm yet filled with authority that only years of service and sacrifice could instill, and he spoke directly to Tyler, his words cutting through the hush with clarity. "Young man, this ground you're standing on is not a stage for your jokes, it is sacred, and you will show respect." Tyler turned, startled that anyone had dared to confront him, and when he saw Daniel, a tall, broad-shouldered man whose presence radiated quiet strength, he scoffed and replied with arrogance dripping from every word, "Who even are you? My dad's a lawyer, so maybe you shouldn't talk to me like that." Some students gasped, Some teachers shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to intervene, but Daniel did not flinch, did not waver, instead pointing to the guard who still marched with unbroken focus and saying firmly, "Do you see that soldier? He has stood through storms, through heat, through bitter cold, without breaking his formation, without faltering for a second, because he is honoring those who never came home, those who gave their lives so you could stand here free, so you could run your mouth without fear, but not here. Not at this tomb, not where silence is the only proper tribute." Tyler rolled his eyes, clinging to his pride though a flicker of doubt began to stir in his chest, and he spat back, "It's just a monument, they don't even know who's in there, so why should I care?" Daniel took a single step closer, his voice lowering but his words carrying more weight than before, his tone resonating with a kind of truth that cannot be faked. "It matters because the unknown represents every soldier who never came home, every father who didn't get to hug his kids again, every mother who never got to say goodbye. It matters because silence here is the gift we give to those who gave everything. And it matters because respect is not about whether you know the name carved on the stone. It's about honoring the sacrifice that lets you stand here today." The crowd had gone utterly still, every ear tuned to the exchange, and Tyler, though still bristling with arrogance, found himself faltering under the weight of the veteran's steady gaze, because behind Daniel's calm words was a pain, a memory, a truth that even a teenager could sense, and for a moment his smirk slipped, his bravado cracked. Daniel continued, his eyes never leaving Tyler's, "You think this is about rules? No, this is about respect, about understanding that freedom isn't free, that the cost was paid by men and women who never asked for recognition, who never got to see the lives they made possible, and one day, maybe when you're older, you'll realize that the hardest thing a man can do is give his life for people he will never meet, people like you." Tyler swallowed hard, his throat dry, his face flushing red as his classmates shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing they were anywhere else, the teachers nodding silently, grateful for the lesson but unwilling to break the gravity of the moment, and then Emma's soft, clear voice broke through as she whispered, "You should say sorry." Tyler's mouth opened, ready with another sarcastic retort, but no words came, because for the first time he felt something he had not felt before in such a place, shame. His gaze shifted to the guard, still walking, unwavering, unshaken by his insults, and something inside him shifted, a small realization that he had mocked something far greater than himself, something he did not understand. The silence of the crowd pressed on him, not mocking, not condemning, but expectant, waiting for him to choose how he would respond, and in that silence Tyler found himself at a loss, no longer the center of attention in the way he craved, but instead standing on the edge of a lesson he could no longer ignore. Daniel did not push further, did not demand an apology, for he knew that true respect could not be forced, it had to come from within, and so he simply nodded once, a gesture that carried both firmness and mercy, and he stepped back to stand beside his daughter again, his hand finding hers, his eyes still calm though his heart carried the weight of the moment. The guard continued his watch, the sun glinting off his rifle, his boots striking the stone with perfect rhythm, and Tyler, for once, had no joke to make, no smirk to hide behind, only the growing realization that he had been wrong, deeply wrong, and though the lesson had only just begun, he would never forget the veteran's words or the silence that followed, a silence more powerful than any shout,